Yes, sir.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Man. It's
How are
great
you?
to see you.
Great to meet you, finally.
Welcome back to Andertons TV. I have taken note of the relentless amount of comments accusing us of only ever playing dad rock and boomer bends, and reached out to some friends. We reached out to Ashlyn, who does all the Victory artists, and we spoke to Adam, who looks after some of the Schecter artists. And we're going, who can we have on the show that isn't going to do dad rock and boomer bends? And I said, well, John Browne's got some new stuff coming out. Maybe he's interested.
I mean, I can do some dad rock if you want.
Could you do some dad rock?
Yeah, I'll just do an out-tune bend if you want.
Savage burn. So everyone who is into their slightly more progressive metal stuff will know John from his band Monuments. But if you don't, obviously John Browne is from Monuments.
Hi.
And I'm so pleased that you could come on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. I've been listening to Monuments for the last 24 hours.
Of course.
And no, I genuinely, as part of my research and stuff. And it's just, it's on the edge of that progressive metal stuff where even as someone that perhaps hasn't grown up with that genre of music, still enjoys it very much.
Well, thank you very much.
So I'm into it. You have another fan, which is,
well, thank you very much.
No, but as with all these videos, I kind of want to start with, as you were growing up, who were your musical influences? Because that sort of progressive scene, it feels like probably an evolution of the music you were listening to, rather than a direct copy, if you like, of the music you were listening to.
So I started with Bob Dylan.
Right. It's a substantial evolution then.
Yeah, it is. So, my uncle showed me Bob Dylan when I was very young, and I played acoustic guitar for a couple of years from the age of like 5.
Right.
And then I stopped playing it because I was like, this isn't for me. And then I found out what an electric guitar was from watching Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer. Oh. So Richie Sambora is probably the most underrated guitar player ever, in my opinion. Yeah,
I concur, and we are instantly best friends now. He's the 80s rock god. We all want
every solo was great. Every song was great. So
he's the master of, I think, the melodic heavy rock guitar solo.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
He wasn't going. Actually, if you break down most of Richie Sambora's solos, they're either very simple or they're relatively simple tricks that sound clever.
Yes.
But they just fit perfectly, like an Angus Young solo.
Exactly.
Every solo is like, yes, Richie, the song needed that. Well done.
That's what it is. The song needed it. And that's why I think I fell in love with Richie's playing immediately. It's like, oh, that's a cool song. And then Wanted Dead or Alive came on. I was like, that's an even cooler song. Great.
Yes.
And then I saw the jet plane, and I was like, I want to do that. Where's my jet plane?
So when were you? Okay, so I know how old you are, and or at least I know how old you are according to Wikipedia.
Yes.
So you must have, you're listening to Slippery When Wet and New Jersey and all that kind of stuff, probably at least 10 years after it's come out, if not more.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to think now, so middle of the 90s or end of the 90s, you were still finding that classic 80s rock thing was what was drawing you in, rather than perhaps what was, a more progressive, like a new metal thing, I suppose, by then?
Well, actually, I heard Bon Jovi before nu metal. And I also heard, I was listening to Oasis at the time, again, very big in the UK. I know there's a lot of people that don't necessarily like it, but I still love it.
Great songs.
Exactly.
Songs.
I've got one stuck in my head right now just from saying the word, But then, obviously, I got into nu metal, like Linkin Park, Papa Roach, and obviously Slipknot, Korn, and all those bands, and was really into that as well. But I also had this phase where I loved power metal as well, so Dragon Force.
Right.
There was a band in the UK actually called Balance of Power.
I don't know them.
No, you wouldn't. They were very small, but I really liked it. I thought it was great. And then I progressed further on from that point. But metal wasn't in my family at all.
Okay.
So my dad listened to classical music and stuff like Tchaikovsky, Chopin, Holst.
Okay.
And then my mum had stuff like Herbie Hancock, Stevie Wonder, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd was in there, Santana.
Your mum sounds cool.
Genesis was a big one as well when I was a kid. Michael Jackson. So lots of different styles from everywhere.
Do you think then perhaps, the highly complex arrangements of most of those classical pieces that you were probably listening to, combined with, classic rock.
Yeah.
Does that sort of, is there some correlation there, you think, that steered you towards the sort of music you've started to play?
I think it was my sugar.
Okay.
When I
so it's
first
more
heard
simple
them.
than that, is it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, you're influenced by what you like as a kid. Definitely, you can hear it, because obviously there's probably songs when you were little that, like, you still love those songs. You will go back to it and be like, and it takes you back to that point. So, yeah, I think that the combination of finding the kind of sound that you want comes later, but then the influences of what makes that sound is from before.
Yeah.
So, like, lots of Michael Jackson with the scratches, and,
So, at what point in your guitar playing sort of journey did you start to sort of feel like this might be something you wanted to do for a career? Did you go through a music school and no? So just normal education and just everything. Are you largely self-taught?
I had a tutor actually by the name of Owen Vaughan Edwards. Now, some people probably have heard of Owen because he was quite a known figure in the 90s, early 2000s. He did like a course with Andy James, for example. So Owen taught me for about 3 years when I was at school. And I learnt a lot from Owen. But other than that, I have been completely self-taught.
With which, I mean, okay, so of the style that you play, who were the guitar players then that you, presumably, I'm guessing what sort of mid to late teens you really start honing style of what you want to play. So who were the players?
Definitely Frederick Thorndal and Morten Hagstrom from Meshuggah played a huge part. There's actually one guitar player that I heard at that time that didn't really influence me till later, but I loved it that much at the same time, which is Ron Jarzenbeck.
Right.
From Spastic Inc., Watchtower in the 80s. You've never heard Ron Jarzenbeck?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, dude.
Good player.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like, it's Meshuggah kind of before Meshuggah.
Right, okay.
But more in standard tuning.
Right.
But I'll be surprised if you haven't heard Ron Jarzenbeck.
Okay.
Because he is kind of everywhere. Like, he completely recreated Bambi with the guitar on YouTube, and if you haven't seen that, I'll
find it.
He's got a brother called Bobby Jarzenbeck that's really good at drums as well.
Okay.
So that was a very, very big influence. Sixth from the UK.
Yeah.
Candiria from the US.
Right.
New York. And then Iron Dissonance.
Okay. So I mean, I think the bigger names there I'm sort of familiar with. Some of these names are obviously reasonably sort of underground, or you're only really knowing if you dive.
And they've also, some of them have gone now as
right.
well, which is like another thing. They were before their time, let's say. Like, obviously, Sixth, UK band, Pin and Dan, great guitar players, and they even disappeared from 2006 till recently.
Right.
But yeah, they were a very, very big influence on the whole sound. In fact, I would go as far to say that they kind of started this progressive metal sound outside of Meshuggah.
Yeah.
Meshuggah, obviously, the rhythms and everything like that influenced pretty much everybody.
Yes.
But I think the actual core of the sound is Sixth.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us about then your, how old were you when you had your first sort of professional full-time band?
I was 18.
So you've gone straight pretty much from education into music.
Yeah. So I joined a band called Fell Silent. So that was Ackle Caney on guitar, who now plays with Tesseract.
Okay.
The drummer Noddy.
So incestuous, isn't it?
It is. The drummer Noddy, who now plays with Heart of a Coward.
Okay.
I think Colin from here also filled in for them. He did.
Oh, really? Colin Bentham.
Yep.
Great
Colin.
drummer.
Yeah. His band actually was very similar in the style as well. So. Then the singer co-wrote Pillow Talk by Zayn Malik.
Okay.
From Fell Silent. Yeah, and
that's like, whoa, one end of the scale to the other.
Exactly. We kind of all went to different places after that band, but yeah, Fell Silent we were a band for 6 years, I think, and everyone just went to different corners of the industry. Max, the bass player, went over to, I believe, Universal or Warner. Okay. And he works for one of those now. I can't remember which one. Sorry, Max. Yeah. So I suppose I wasn't probably following that scene, so I don't recollect what sort of Fell Silent were doing. What were you listening to in the early 2000s?
Oh, the same as I've been listening to. Eric Clapton, obviously.
Oh, perfect. I got all day for that.
I'm just trying to think, really. Early 2000s. Fun enough, I did have a bit of a gateway drug into much heavier music. So my childhood, or my recollections, from the 80s were lots of. My dad had lots of Police records.
Okay,
he liked
great.
Steely Dan, and like quite. And there were definitely Led Zeppelin records and Hendrix records in there, but I wouldn't have said that was his big thing. And then I liked all the stuff from the 80s that had guitars in it. So
Nitro.
Yeah, I mean, even down to, I think I'd be lying if I said, you wouldn't enjoy listening to Duran Duran and Nick Kershaw and stuff like that.
So great.
But most of it would have been, Clapton, Dire Straits, Phil Collins, that type of. It's interesting, really, because I think for a long time, I was quite embarrassed about the music that I liked during the 80s. And I think for a long time, the 80s was about bad haircuts and bad shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff. But looking back now, I just end up going, oh man, there was so much good music.
So much. Yeah.
But I then, for some reason, in my sort of mid-20s, maybe mid to late 20s, it might have been bands like Rage Against the Machine or
great band,
sort of slightly, that I just went, oh, there's some heavier stuff out there. That's so I did sort of, and I then ended up kind of going back and listening to probably heavier 80s stuff that I hadn't listened to before.
Yeah.
I was always a big Bon Jovi fan, but I mean much heavier than.
Anyway.
Anyway, it's not my interview, it's your interview.
No, but I'm glad you answered. It's good to bounce questions sometimes. Because I forget about bands that I've listened to. Yeah. Like, you reminded me then that I did listen to Hendrix a lot. All Along the Watchtower is probably the best cover song of all time that he did,
It's a... Really, anybody that plays the electric guitar has to accept that all roads lead back to Jimi Hendrix at some point or another. It's like something about the way you play or the bands you like play nowadays goes back to him eventually. Yeah. As much as everyone would like to probably try and disagree, I think it's one of those things you can't. Anyway, so look, tell me about Monuments. How did that come together? Was that still this sort of incestuous scene of like, you knew the drummer from this band and the singer from this other band, and it was
kind of, yeah.
So tell us about that.
So like, quite a lot of us were on a forum called the Meshuggah Forum.
Right, okay.
Meshuggah, right? So yeah, me, Ackle, Misha from Periphery. Yeah. Paul Ortiz of Chimp Spanner. I don't know if you're familiar with Chimp Spanner. No, you'll like that because it's like, imagine Vangelis mixed with fusion guitar. Wow. So yeah, the soundtrack of Blade Runner mixed with guitar. There's
so much. Before you go today, I'm going to end up with like a homework book of like all the bands to go and listen to because this is what I need. I need this education. But go on.
So we a lot of us kind of met on the Meshuggah Forum, and from that, you had MySpace at the time. You'd put your music up, and then you'd get a message from someone saying, "Hey, I like what you've done here. Can I put some vocals on it?" So that happened to me with Joshua Travis, who now plays in Amure, was in Tony Danza's Tap Dance Extravaganza, which is the greatest band name ever. Yeah. So that happened. He did some vocals, and I got to know Josh from that. And then got a message from Mike when he was 15 years old playing a song, and it was like, how are you doing that at such a young age? And that's kind of how Monuments came together. So it was happening at the same time as Fell Silent. Yeah. And then Fell Silent broke up, and I decided to take Monuments as like a touring band as opposed to just being a side project.
And Monuments, my old befuddled brain still kind of goes, oh, quite a new band, isn't it? But what are you, 15 years into Monuments now? 10?
It's 15? Almost. So I started the first songs in 2006.
So it's more than 15 years?
Yeah, but we didn't go live until 2010.
Right, okay.
So it's technically a live band for 13 years.
That's so, I mean, you're veterans now, really, aren't you? Of the
yes, I'm old.
But tell us about that, what's been the, I mean, obviously we want to talk about gear and obsession with gear, because that's what it's all about. Yep. And we're going to talk about John's new guitar school as well, which is coming soon. But put the sort of, I don't know, the 10, 15 year Monuments journey, like what have been the highs and lows of that journey?
Oh wow, there's a lot of those.
Hopefully more highs than lows.
Hopefully more highs. Yeah, I mean, we've got to play with some of our favourite bands, Carnival being one of them, one of my favourite bands ever. We've played with Meshuggah, we've played with Devin Townsend, played with Animals as Leaders, Periphery, Tesseract. We've played with some absolutely amazing bands and been to every continent on the planet, apart from Antarctica, because only Metallica plays there.
So. Really, yeah. It's Penguins, they're more into their sort of country music.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Writing, aren't they?
But yeah, it's taken us everywhere, and it's been amazing. We've got to see a lot of the world that we wouldn't have seen.
That's amazing. And has it been a band that relies on touring to sort of, pay the bills and stuff, or are you finding ways to release music?
What is paying the bills?
Oh no! Because I mean, you've become a professional musician, really in this new world where there is no sense of, spend 6 months making an album, release the album, and then just, live off the proceeds of that.
Yeah.
So how does that dynamic, clearly it pays the bills to an extent where, you're here, alive.
Yeah.
But what is the struggle? How does that work? Again, people perhaps thinking of forming a band now, what's the, how do you break that down into?
If you think about it, like music is so sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Because of Spotify, you can just sort of throw it away.
Yeah.
It's not
disposable.
It's disposable, rather than being what it used to be, where everyone would go and buy the vinyl, go and buy the cassette or the CD, and they would actually purchase it because there was no other way of digesting this music other than maybe hearing it on the radio by luck if it wasn't in the top 10.
Yeah.
So now you can't really make any money from the sales of your record unless you're literally at the top.
Yeah.
So it's all about either touring and selling loads of merch. For a lot of bands, that is their income, or diversifying by what you do outside of the band that was made because of the band.
Yeah.
I think a good example of this in the early 2000s was Ollie Sykes of Bring Me the Horizon with Drop Dead Clothing.
Right.
So he created his own clothing brand, which obviously did very well for him. And it's still going today.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs it now with how big Bring Me is. But at the time, it probably helped a lot,
Sure.
Or, having a signature guitar, a signature amp, doing guitar lessons or any lessons in your chosen field, or even thinking further than that if you want to. There's many other things that you can do outside of the band. And, it's about having more than just one income stream.
Yeah.
If you have multiple, then a little bit there adds up to be, I can pay my rent this month,
Yeah. Did you struggle to come to terms with that, or are you because of how relatively recent your sort of professional life as a musician has been?
Yeah.
Was it always that from day one?
Yeah, it just like that was the normality.
Yeah. So there was, because I think I speak to a lot of musicians who maybe started in the 90s,
and they got £500,000
and they were like,
record
so they had a
contracts.
bit of a taste of the old-fashioned way, and then all of a sudden that got pulled away, and they've really struggled to come to terms with how am I supposed to make any money out of this? How am I supposed to live, because all my music is free out there? It's like, but that's interesting. So I think you're part of that next generation of just like, well, this is just
normality. Yeah. You'd put your song up on MySpace, and it's like, oh, everyone has it.
Yeah,
fine.
Somebody, I can't remember who I was interviewing, somebody came up with an amazing, sort of encapsulated the whole thing, which has said prior to like 1950, when record deals started to become a thing, the 2,000 years of music before that, or 10,000 years of music before that, or whatever, was like, if you weren't gigging, you weren't earning.
No.
The end.
Exactly.
It's just like, so actually all you had was this tiny little window in time of sort of 30 or 40 years where actually you just got paid a load of money to record an album, and then you could kick back and live off that. Yeah. And that was then, and now we're back to...
What a beautiful 30 years though, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So it's kind of normality, but I never even thought about it like that before, like the recording element of vinyl.
Yeah.
You couldn't record music, it was all about the concert.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it switched to being recorded media, and then recorded media and concerts, and now it's like, back to concerts again. Yeah.
The whole thing, I think it's super interesting. You like you say, a signature pedal deal, your own guitar lessons, touring, merch. It's like everything is, I think now, your successful musician nowadays has to either be quite an astute businessman themselves, or have like a sixth member of the band, if you like, who is the sort of the astute business. Otherwise, you are just going to car crash and hemorrhage a load of dough and end up going,
Yeah, and also you need to be more than just a guitar player or a vocalist now. You need to be able to use a video camera to go on social media, understand social media, and all of the algorithms and, everything. It's about all of it now. You can't just be good at playing.
Yeah.
And if you are good at playing and you've managed to make it, then you're very, very lucky.
Would you say that the lows over the last 15 years have all been those times when you're just going, I don't know, I'm going to pay the rent this month?
Oh, yeah.
And it's all like, the allure of the delivery driver for Tesco's as opposed to the guitar player in Monuments.
Exactly. But I mean, I've done my share of really awful jobs.
Right.
I say really awful. I mean, I could have been a lot worse. But I've spent time just doing something that I didn't want to do in order to make this element work.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone has to go through that, unless again they're very lucky or have a parent to pay their way, which would have been very, very nice, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. That's a bank of mum and dad. Yeah. It's always.
Yeah.
So we've got some quite interesting things. Gear-wise, I think a few things have changed for you relatively recently.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit of the backlog, but you obviously had spent many years playing I never know if it's Mayonnaise or Mayonnaise, but whichever one of those it is. Yeah. But you then switched over to playing some of the stock Schecter stuff, and it's mega exciting now that you've obviously going to join the Schecter sort of artist roster.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did that all come about, and what have you done with your guitar that makes it a good fit for you?
So let's talk about why I stopped working with Mayonnaise, actually. So the main component was that Schaller discontinued the Hannes bridge for 7 and 8 string guitars.
Right.
And the Hannes was quite unique on the guitar I was playing with Mayonnaise. It was like one of two main components that made it mine. So the Vel was obviously already a guitar. And mine had an ash body and the Hannes bridge, and they couldn't sell that guitar with those components on unless it was my signature. Yeah. Which is obviously a smart thing to do, because it's a custom guitar brand. Yeah. And anyone can order whatever they want except that. Yeah. So Schaller stopped that bridge, and I was like, that's kind of the universe telling me to try something different after almost 10 years. Right. And at the time, Adam from Schecter had got in touch saying, hey, if you want anything, then we're here. And that's while I was still with Mayonnaise. And he was like, if you ever want a signature guitar, we can chat. So I was like, come on then, let's make something. Let's see what happens. What were you playing by? Because you played Schecter, like stock models for a bit. I did before Mayonnaise. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's where the connection is. Yeah, so I had a C7 Blackjack when I was in Fell Silent. Okay. Before it had the really dumb card inlay on it. Well, I mean, I actually think of all the sort of the more modern contemporary guitar brands, Schecter have done the best job of reinventing themselves over the last 10 years. Definitely, but if you think about it, even in the mid-2000s, the guitars were good. Yeah. They sounded great, but they just had abalone everywhere. There was definitely an image issue with Schecter, I think, which they've done, like you said, an amazing job of working with the right artists and changing the designs. I mean, you couldn't get any less bling than that, could you? I mean, no, it's pretty cool. It looks so cool, understated. This had a sort of working title of Bluick. Right. Because it's based on like the old 50s pastel colour car, so a Buick Skylark is amazing car, isn't it? But so I'm just looking at this now. So you've gone with a Hipshot. Was that the closest thing to the Schaller then that you could kind of find? There isn't really anything that's like the Schaller. The reason why I fit so well with the Schaller is because I spent years playing with guitars with low pro edges and Floyd Roses. Right. And you can't feel it. Right. So obviously you get a Tune-o-matic, your hand feels like it's going to get crushed or pinched or something. So the Hipshot I had in a couple of guitars, and it's a really nice bridge. It's definitely tonally different than the Hannes bridge. So basically what I'm saying is, Schaller, can you please bring back the Hannes bridge? What was interesting about that? Is there much like big lumpy saddles on it or something? I can't visualise what the Hannes bridge was like. It's the Graphtec saddle. So what's on the black machines, and it's got like a tailpiece, and then the saddles are attached. Right. It's just a slightly different design, but it definitely sounds more airy. Right. Loads of people don't like it. Right. I loved it because so you can still get it as a 6-string bridge. Still get it as 6-string. It's just 7 and 8. All right.
But I mean, I must admit, this is such a widely
accepted bridge, right?
Yeah,
everyone loves it.
Yeah, and it's spawned like 1,000 lookalikey things, doesn't it? But
it's a great bridge.
And then what have you done pickups wise?
So I was a bare knuckle artist for years. I had a nail bomb ceramic in the bridge and a cold sweat in the neck.
Yeah.
And obviously I've used those pickups for over 10 years at this point. So I said to Schecter, look, I'm happy for you to design something. If I like it, let's go with it. But this is what I like.
Yeah.
See what you come up with. So
these are Schecter. Oh, these are Schecter's own pickups.
Yeah. Cool. So this is the Colossus, which is based loosely off of a ceramic nail bomb, which I say loosely because this has an Alnico 5 magnet in it.
Okay.
And it sounds so angry. And I don't know what they did. Obviously, there's only so much you can do with magnets and copper wire.
Yeah.
But it sounds great. And then the neck, the Chaos Breaker, which is, again, loosely based off of the pickup I liked in the neck.
Yeah.
And I said, just make it different. Make it along these lines. And they made something great.
Gone with a traditional scale length by the looks of things here?
On the 6 string, yeah. So the 6 string is 25.5.
Yeah.
The 7 and the 8 are 27.
Okay. And then what, is it Graphtec or Tusk Nut?
Yes, it is, yeah.
I like the tuners. They're an unusual actual tuning peg on those. What brand are they?
This is the Hip Shots, the open gear. Yep.
I don't think I'm going mad then. It's maybe just because they're black, but the button looked different. And then what is this on like an ash body or something? Is it?
Yep, swamp ash body.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah,
really nice. And a very I like the neck as well.
Yeah, so this is a Wenge, and I always forget the name of this wood. I should really know this, shouldn't I? Because it's my guitar. I want to say that it's because obviously Babinga turned into the cities.
Yes.
So you can't use Babinga anymore.
Has that not been relaxed now? Because I know
it might have been, but we didn't use it because of that. It's a weird word, and I can't remember what it is right now.
We'll put it on screen now.
Yeah, put it on screen because I've not had any sleep.
How much do you secretly talk to other artists? I'm thinking predominantly Rabir about guitar designs and stuff, because it is so many of the things that you like are things that I've heard him talk about that he likes.
That's quite funny because I've never spoken to Rabir about guitar design. No.
Interesting.
The weird connection here is the building where my studio is owned by Rabir's sort of uncle.
Is it?
Yeah, so he was...
I didn't know Rabir's uncle was some sort of property magnate.
So anyway, this guy was in a band with Rabir's dad for years. So that's kind of the connection there. I've actually seen him at that spot just before he played with Stormzy, funnily. And he didn't tell me. So that's
mad. That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
I mean, what have you got? Ebony board then? And stainless steel frets.
And then lumen lays as well. I think what it is
it's a proper gigging machine, isn't it? I like the fact that you've just gone, just give me a volume and a switch and off we go.
And then the pull for the split coils.
Yeah.
Which I don't use in a live scenario, but in a recorded setting, they can come up with something quite magical, you know? But I think a lot of guitar players in this scene have very similar tastes in guitars. Because obviously, like me, Rabir's tried everything, and he's just like, I like that, I like that, I like that.
And very demanding as well. I was saying to John before we got started, watching from the outside looking in, or watching Martin and Rabir developing this together. I don't know that I've ever seen so many revisions. It's this when you're designing, I think, a vintage inspired amplifier. There's a certain simplicity that you want from the amplifier that kind of is, you end up with a relatively tried and tested set of knobs on it, and you go, And I know on this, it was, particularly with some of the features are on the back, and this is obviously a revision of the first amplifier anyway. And I just remember every time we all thought Martin was like, that's the one, is it? Rabir would just go, there's just this one other thing that I want to try that would turn into the next revision, So this probably, this was probably 3 years in the making, just to go from Mark 1 to Mark 2.
It's quite funny that, because guess what revision number this is?
Well, you're on like revision 20 on that or something.
2.
Oh, really? So the opposite. So they nailed it out the bat.
Yeah, so the original pre-production had 5 here, 5 bolts for the neck, and I was like, my OCD cannot handle this lack of symmetry. So that was one change, and we added in some of these bevels on the inside. But in terms of playability, I was like, it's solid. It sounds great. So we can't really go too far away from here. We were definitely on the right track, and the rest is just aesthetics.
Yeah, I think it's a great. I mean, I like what you've done with the headstock.
That's actually my least favourite part of it.
Really?
I wanted to design something completely new, but obviously wasn't allowed to because of the trademarks thing. But
I like it.
I still think it's a great. I think it matches the style perfectly. So
So do you mind doing a sort of an Anderton style demo of it? So this is, bridge pickup, neck pickup, coil attack. Just give us some sounds.
So yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'll turn this off because we don't really need the boost because this amp just sounds great anyway. So I'm going to do some chords, some nice big chords, show how clear everything is. So that's the bridge pickup. Clear, right?
Yeah.
And then with the neck pickup, you can get into some really like cool sort of rounded more sounds like that. But still really, really clear.
That's not flubby at all, that neck pickup, is it? Which is quite unusual for a neck pickup with that much gain on it. But,
right?
Yeah.
But when you put it onto clean, it like blooms
right.
as well, which is exactly what you want for clean sounds, that big, thick 59 kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we can do some, like, I'm going to switch to gain 1 here on this. Turn up the gain a little bit. I'm sorry if I blast our heads off now.
Well, we can adjust, it's fine.
Yeah. So there's like lots of different sounds in just these 2 pickups.
It's a great sounding guitar. I do like the look of it as well. That's always been one of my favourite colours. Obviously, you've got 2 choices of colour and multiple choices of strings. So do you jump from 6, 7 to 8 within a normal Monument set?
Yeah, all 3 guitars.
All 3.
I have to take 4 guitars with no backups.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. In multiple tunings, or is everything typically the same tuning?
It's all in Dadgad tuning, but lower variations of Dadgad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this one's in Dadgad right now. The 8 string is Dadgad from the middle. I have an extra high and an extra low, so it's B flat Dadgad. Random.
So nobody's inspired that. I mean, the only guy I can think of that ever played Dadgad all the time, and it's like Jimmy Page or something like that.
Actually, yeah. So Ackle was a huge Led Zeppelin fan, so he started playing in Dadgad 4 Fell Silent. So then I learnt to play in Dadgad, and now I can't play in standard anymore.
Does that freak? I mean, is soloing and stuff very different in Dadgad?
I don't really solo.
Not big solo. It's all mainly riffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't like solos, but when people like Wes Hauck and all those guys exist, there's almost no point. It's like, You're
just there to get burned, are you?
Exactly, yeah. It's like I feel like Steve Vai at the end of Crossroads.
That's a good analogy. Good analogy. I sometimes feel when you're listening to sort of progressive, it doesn't need the solo in the way a more classic rock song feels like it's following the sort of verse chorus, middle 8 guitar solo. It doesn't feel like the progressive thing follows that formula. So therefore, you're not sort of going, oh, where's the solo, you know? Anyway.
But the thing is, though, like, solos work great in songs that need solos, but I've never really felt like I've needed to do one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm already playing a million notes during the riffs.
For sure.
Do I really need to play any more notes?
For sure.
You know? Yeah.
Let's talk about we're talking about amps and pedals. So obviously, you know, the Victory thing is something that I know a little bit about, you know, which artists people are coming on board. And but I hadn't really heard that you were using the Victory stuff until I'd spoken to Ashlyn and we were talking about, you know, artists that we were looking to try and bring into the channel. So what is your... what's been your relationship with these guys? So, is this a relatively new thing for you?
Yeah, so I've actually been doing videos for them for a little while. So I've had the Super Jack and the Super Kraken that I've done videos of in my studio, and then I used the Super Kraken on the last tour with Electric Callboy.
Cool. Which
sounded great. And then Island sent me... Is it Island?
Ashlyn.
It's Ashlyn.
Ashlyn, but it's Irish. She's not Irish, or perhaps if she herself lives in London, doesn't sound Irish, but she has one of those Irish names where you just look at it and go, could be pronounced anything.
Exactly, so like the name Siobhan.
Yes, you have to wait for her to tell you what her name is before you have any idea how to pronounce her name.
Yes, okay, right. So she also sent me the Mark II, but this is 50 watt as well, isn't it? It's just in a different head shell.
Yep, so this was, for many, many years, the 50 watt, the smaller versions of the Victory amplifiers were only available in the metal, folded metal thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was a decision that was made, I think, at the beginning of this year or at the end of last year, which was just like, look, why don't we do it in a wooden shell as well? Because it's just kind of, some people like the more traditional look. It adds a couple of £100 onto the price. Other than that,
and a couple of kilos too.
Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about that, but it definitely, I think personally, I like the look of the wooden sleeve one better. But it's you know, some people might go, it does make it slightly bigger and slightly, I hadn't even noticed the weight, but I guess slightly heavier. So if its size is the paramount important to you, then yeah, the folded metal ones are still available.
Yeah, you can just take them on a plane and it's not a problem, you know? Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started and how I met Ashlyn. It's Ashlyn, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. I just think about that one. And yeah, I tried this one only 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And I've just done a video on it in my studio and it sounds really good.
Yeah, well, we were talking to Kieran, who's sitting off camera here, but you know, the gearhead in the room.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting, the whole point of the Kraken, I think, was to take those hyper classic amplifiers that are associated with metal.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether it's more recent Marshalls or 5150s, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think talking to Rabir was always like, those amps are amazing, but there's always an EQ tweak that every engineer wants to make to those amplifiers to sort of somehow try and dial out an unwanted frequency or an overtone, or some people call it a fizz or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And I know Rabir's whole thing of working with Martin was to get the sound that you didn't need to EQ the unwanted bits out of. Which then, interestingly, you've got guitar players who are super familiar with the amps that do make the unwanted noise, that kind of miss it when it's not there.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're sort of going, oh, crikey, you solved one problem and then create another. But I think what Rabir and Martin have done with this, and the general feedback is, the modern metal finished sound. That amp does.
It does. It does. Like, especially the good thing about this amp as well, it mics up really well, which is what everyone loved about the 5150. The fact you could just throw a 57 in front of it and it would sound good. It didn't really matter to a degree. Well, it did, obviously, but you know what I mean? It wasn't like something like an Engel, which is quite difficult to mic up. It sounds great in the room, but then you have to spend a lot of time with it. Not to say that Engels are bad by any means. I love Engels, but amps. Some amps are a little bit more particular than others. Whereas that one, it's like instantly sounds great. Yeah,
I like that. I remember Rabir and Martin went back and forth so much around getting the bass end right.
Yeah.
So I think for that's the big difference for me between the more classic rock and metal sound and the more modern stuff is how tight you need the bass end to be.
Exactly.
And again, trying to do it without the need for a pedal. You know, just trying to get an amp that had the sound. So that, you know, I'm really, again, it's always great to hear artists go, yeah, I like the amplifier. You know,
exactly.
it's like, thank you very much. You know, but I mean, again, what do you
It's funny you say about the bass. I actually prefer it with the bass focus turned off.
Oh, so you like the sort of slightly flabbier?
Well, if you think about it, it's the cab fart. It's the reminder. You know, when you play a Marshall and it's farting at you, that cab thing. That's what I love. Like, it's almost telling me, yeah, you're playing the guitar right.
Oh well, yeah. I was interested. Now, we're in the studio. We're quite happy to have cranked amps or quiet amps or whatever. But I'm always slightly nervous when an artist comes in and says, "I only want to play low," that you'll ever really get a valve amplifier to shine.
Yes.
But you're quite well. Do you prefer playing quietly? Because that was your sort of default position, was to have it.
It's just how early it is in the morning. And I've not had a full coffee yet. Speaking of which,
yes,
actually,
slurp some more coffee.
I do have some coffee here.
So when you're recording,
yeah.
Are you typically using load boxes and stuff to get the volume right down, or is it cranked?
Cranked to hell.
Right.
Like, so when we were filming the videos yesterday, I had the master volume at about 1 o'clock.
Nice.
On this, obviously, it's not as loud as a 100-watt amp.
Yeah.
But it's still cooking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, everything you've heard in this video, John's gone. We're in the low mode. I forget what that does. But it puts it at about 10 watts from memory.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had a master above a quarter of the way up. So
no, we haven't. It's still it's audible. It basically means that you're not being drowned out when we're trying to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I do like playing loud because it definitely does react with the room, and you can get the perfect volume for that.
Well, that was, I mean, funnily enough, that's where Pete and I have ended up. We've gone round and round this whole sort of, amps versus modelers, and and I've really, really tried to go. I know that a big part of why I like traditional amplifiers is just an irrational sense of being drawn to the past rather than anything really scientific.
Yep.
But we certainly have noticed, I think what we've ended up going is, as a guitar player, it's so much more inspiring to stand in front of a decent sized speaker cabinet loud than it is to get the same sort of modeled sound or the same vibe of sound quietly through a pair of studio speakers.
Yes.
It's the listener is probably going to go, sounds the same to me.
Yeah.
But that's because they're only ever hearing this loud recorded through a little pair of speakers. If you're physically here, it's like there's a sense of something that's just...
There is. For me, it's how it feels. Like, it's the way that the tubes react to how hard I pick and to what I'm doing with my hand when I rest it against the strings. The way that the tubes squash. All that stuff. It's like, I like models. I use a Line 6 Helix live with the amp, and it sounds great. I really like the Helix. I think it's a really good unit. But there's just something about standing in front of that, blasting. It just sounds right. It feels right.
We talked about the whole 180-degree switch in terms of, the old-fashioned way of making money was as a musician was to spend a load of time and energy on an album that generated tons of income for you, and then touring was seen as like the marketing budget for the album. And now it's completely flipped the other way around. The recording the album is the marketing spend to promote the tour. I almost feel like valve amplifiers have done... There's been a similar 180. It was like the studios used to have lots of digital gear, but when you were touring, you had the loud amplifiers. It now feels like touring, everyone's like, oh, we can't take too much gear. Sound man doesn't want us to be too loud. We're all got in ear anyway. So touring is now all little digital stuff.
Exactly.
But studios are going, no, that's where we can crank up a valve amplifier and really smash some killer guitar tones.
Exactly.
It's funny, isn't it, how this
how 180 flip. Saying that though, I still mic up amps live.
Right.
I have to face the cabs away from the singer often because it's so compressed in his in-ears that all he can hear is guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like it's how it feels to play live. If I'm not having fun live, why am I doing it?
I think there'll be a person in there. Yes, Mr. Pete he's always said, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
Yes,
and
exactly.
And I suppose, I don't know, because it's a job, isn't it, for a lot of guitar players?
To a degree, yeah, but don't you want your job to sound good?
I'm not. I'm only trying to be devil's advocate because of the amount of people out there who'll be going, yeah, well, I've got this, digital device and it sounds amazing and it fixes so many of the impracticalities of having a valve. And it's like...
And it's fair comments.
It is all... And that's what I mean. I think that's a perfectly reasonable argument as well.
Yeah.
But I know... yesterday, Pete and I were doing a Soldano video yesterday.
Oh, yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
And we're up at like 110 dB in the room or whatever like that. And it's just... And then I think... I have to be careful about, because the amp I'm talking about isn't out yet.
Hasn't gone out till...
But whatever. And then there's the amp has an emulated output. So part of the video is about going, let's try the emulated output. And then you hear, the same amp, but much quieter through little speakers like this.
Yeah.
And like you're going, yeah, it sounds like that amplifier, but the funometer has gone down here, like that, because it's just not crazy loud and fun anymore.
It's not fun, and it feels different.
Yeah.
As well, that's what it is to me. Like the moment you put it through a cab, it does something really epic.
Yeah.
I can't put. But I also did a video on that same amplifier.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yeah. And we really liked it. We really liked it.
It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's probably going to appeal to an older generation than an amplifier like this. It's very much got its roots in classic rock blues.
You say that. It sounded really disgusting to me. Come on, back me up here, Kieran. It sounded disgusting.
It sounded pretty pissed.
It's got a huge fat wall of gain. I totally agree with you.
Let's just say red. The red.
You liked it in that particular universe, did you?
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, look.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure actually this video will come out after that.
It will. Yeah.
So you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's talk about pedals.
Yep.
I did when you came in. It was almost like What kind of a pedal board do we need to put together for you, John? And I was sort of fully expecting, this, great big long rider. And it was like, can I get, let's talk. There was one pedal that we do stock but didn't have at the time. So all pedals slam something.
Slamurai.
Slamurai. I was going to say Slamarmy as a Slamurai. So that's like just a straight boost.
It's
typically?
a boost with a 3-band EQ. So you have volume gain.
Right. And that's what
treble.
if you've got an amp with plenty of gain in it, you're sort of going, why introduce any more gain from the pedal? It's just about boost and EQ.
It is, It's literally, even, so normally, if I'm playing 7 or 8, I'll have a G7 before the boost to cut 100 and 200 hertz by a tiny amount, because then it brings it into 6-string territory in terms of what the amp is receiving. It's not being overloaded by my low F string. So it tightens everything up. So that's why the Slamurai is good, because obviously it's got the bass control, so you can just nudge that down a tiny little bit.
I have to try that. I mean, we've taken on the whole all-pedal range a couple of months ago, but Pete and I haven't tried them yet. So
Slamurai is really
very cool,
good, And
well,
if you're into your weird sort of noises, then they've got a couple of those as well that sound really good.
Anyway, when I said interesting, your Tube Screamer didn't really come up on your menu, so that's you're not a fan of how that works?
Yes and no. Like, I go through phases, like anyone else. Like, could be a DS1 or an OCD or Slamurai, or I even had my own pedal at one point that was basically based off an OCD, but it was a little bit more hi-fi.
Right.
And I mean, I just go, like, different amps like different things.
For sure. I suppose that you're creating a recipe at the end of the day, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's like any one component is just one ingredient, isn't
exactly.
it? So you've got to complement. You've got to find what complements all the other ingredients.
You don't want the same mushrooms in your omelette versus, something else. So you may as well just give it a try. Like yesterday when we were trying this, actually, I had one of the 1433 pedals.
Yeah.
And it hated it.
Oh, really?
It hated it. Yeah. So the 33 obviously is in, it's introducing so much volume.
Right.
The only amp that I think it sounds great in front of is anything made by Mesa.
Right, okay.
Because it's very much like the TC integrated pre, which is
interesting.
Obviously it sounds great in front of a Mesa. So.
I mean, your settings on the OCD are what you would perhaps expect someone to do with a Tube Screamer, which is to have it on a low drive setting with the volume pushed a little bit.
Yep.
You asked for again another interesting one. You asked for a noise suppressor, which we grabbed you, and the one that we've got is. Has two modes, noise reduction or noise gate. So it's the new Boss NS1X. And I just assumed, because of course, I have this sort of one-dimensional view of all progressive metal players, that, it was gate and about getting that staccato kind of attack there. But you're like, no, I just want it on reduction mode.
Yeah.
So is that another, you're not trying to get that, that very percussive, or you're getting that percussive tone using a different,
so
technique?
if you hit harder, then the quieter bits sound quieter. It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal physics. So when it comes to gates, I try not to hard gate.
Yeah.
I just want it to make it obviously in the studio, someone's going to gate it, whether that's me. I didn't gate the first two records. It was just what was built into what I was using. But I think a hard gate, it always sounds kind of dumb to me.
Right.
It sounds stupid because it's not real.
That's a great... If I had one, and it's not a criticism, but if I had one observation of some modern technical metal bands, it's that the guitar amp sound doesn't sound like an amp.
No, it sounds more like a synth.
Yeah. And I wonder if that is that heavily gated.
Yeah. And obviously in the studio, it gets cut out anyway. It doesn't matter if it's a rock record or a metal record. The engineer's probably be like, I want that to sound tighter and I can do this.
Yeah.
But it kind of it's almost faking that you're good at the instrument.
Oh, okay.
To me. So, fair enough, you can use whatever tools you want, and I'm not telling you not to. But for me personally, if I make it, I want my hand, if I do this, to make a noise.
Right.
I want that kind of reaction where I'm not feeding back, because the gain's not too high, but I feel like gates now are used to correct problems in playing.
Okay.
Rather than...
Controversial.
Yeah. Don't hate me.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a technical level, some of today's players are
unbelievable.
Are taking it to another.
Yeah.
I find I've always been, I think, with music, and actually you can go right back to stuff from the 70s, some of the weird jazz stuff in the 70s. Yeah. I think sometimes technicality overtakes musicality. And, and it's like, I'm just going to play this because I can, not because I should,
Yeah, exactly.
And again, all music is art, and it's all subjective.
It's all
and
great.
If you like it, then pointless arguments with someone going, "Oh, I don't like it." But for me, I think I'm looking for all my music to have musicality first, and then if there's some impressive technique within that musicality, it's all like, ooh. But it's not. I don't want technique just for the sake of technique.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is for me. So when it comes to gates, I get it. Some music sounds better when the gate's hard. But when I'm playing the instrument, I want to be able to correct everything I'm doing wrong.
Right.
And sometimes if the gate's too much, then it's giving me a false sense of I'm doing a good job.
So, but I mean, I think that's quite, again, I think people always watch these videos. Some of it is, interested in just the career path and the stories that the artist will have. But I kind of feel like there is, if people can watch these videos and walk away with a couple of tips about, I'll go and revisit how I set my gate or whatever, just to experiment, it's worthwhile.
Have you ever done that, turned off all of your pedals and then tried to play on the tone without any help? Because then it really gives you a good sense of how good you are as a player.
I mean, obviously I need all the help I can get as a player.
I do too, dude.
But I think that's the conversation that Pete and I have at the moment with, there is this sort of gear snob obsession with Dumble amplifiers.
Okay, yeah.
This idea that, that's the epitome of the best amp that you can have.
You tried one?
I actually haven't plugged in, or if I have, I don't recollect it. I might have plugged into when Robin Ford was here. He had his,
Okay.
but from what I understand, I've plugged into Dumble clones, amps that profess to be, and I am exposed. Like, all my weaknesses as a guitar player are like, there you are. And so I've probably never sounded worse than into one of those
Dumbles.
type of amplifiers.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation Pete and I have been having a lot is, it's like, if you're as a guitar player and you aspire to own this gear, or you want to use this gear,
Yeah.
you want to buy other gear that replicates it,
Yeah.
you better be good. Because this is like not, this is, and I remember John Mayer. I mean, I know John Mayer's not everybody's cup of tea, but I remember John Mayer talking about when he did his 100-watt JM100 PRS amplifier.
Yeah.
And he did this quite awkward introduction of saying, look, I don't know how to say this, but unless you're like good like I am, you're not going to sound great through this amplifier.
Yeah.
And it was a bit like, wow. And I get it. I get it. I think if you're at that level and you want an amplifier to amplify every nuance that you're making, like boom, there it is.
Yeah.
Then that's the amp to buy.
Exactly. Yeah. Freyat or Fryat is the same thing. Like when you play that, it's so. It's funny. I had a call with Steve, and he didn't know what I was talking about when people say his amplifiers are really dry.
Right.
He didn't really get it, and I was like, yeah, it's really every mistake is like there, So that's like one amplifier. I've owned a couple of them over the years, and it's like, I feel really bad playing it. I feel like I don't deserve this amp. It's one of those. It's kind of like the Dumble.
Yeah, I want the amp with the built-in crutch, for sure. Yeah, well, that's what my pedals are. It's this enormous, set of guitar ability, talent boosters.
Exactly.
On the floor.
That's what that is right there, yeah.
Well, look, I mean, there was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about what you've done to your neck. I know it's, you sort of, you're pretty relaxed about it, and make a bit of a joke about saying you've been Mick Marsed.
Yeah.
But it's obviously, can you relate that back to guitar playing, or is it just something
Unfortunately, genetic.
Right.
So unfortunately it runs, I believe my father had it.
Right.
He was never diagnosed with it, but
Yeah.
now looking back, it's like, this is pretty close to what you had. And it's just basically a form of arthritis that means parts of your spine fuse.
Right.
I'm glad I can still play guitar.
So I was about to say, do you think any of the guitar playing has exacerbated it? Have you had to I don't know, wear different straps or avoid? No. So
it's literally just for me. I'm quite lucky in that the only problem I have is I can't look up.
Yeah.
The most annoying thing for me is the fact that I sort of was going to the hospital and the doctors while it was happening, while there was still time, but they didn't know what it was, and obviously I'd never heard of it. So if they caught it earlier, then something could have been done earlier, and I might have been able to still see the stars, But ultimately, it's just another obstacle to get past, isn't it? It's like the Dumble amp.
I suppose in fairness, it's like, at least you're looking at the fretboard.
Exactly.
It could have been worse, couldn't it?
Yeah, I can still see it.
Oh man, and are you in any pain, or is it just something?
It's more just annoying.
Right.
So like you've got an itch that you can't itch.
Right.
It's kind of like that to me.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's all good. I mean, Mick Mars was doing it and still doing it now, and he's had it since he was 17.
Yeah.
It's quite like.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that you're not in a lot of discomfort, and that it hasn't had a negative impact on your guitar playing, because that would be. I always think of if if I was going to have an injury, weird morbid conversation this is. It would be the one thing that would break my heart the most. I think
if you couldn't play guitar,
you couldn't play guitar.
Yeah, I mean, you look at people like Jason Becker, and it's just like I feel terrible because he was one of the best ever.
Yeah.
And he still writes music now.
Yeah.
Which is really inspiring more than anything else. You could be at the most bottom ever and still manage to find a way to write beautiful music. It's just insane to me.
Yeah, that is inspiring.
Yeah.
let's talk about your school then. We'll do a little bit about the school, because that's exciting news. And then we'll maybe have a bit of an extended play out or whatever of just stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so is this what, the John Browne School of Rock? I mean, what's happening?
The pick of destiny. So I am opening up a new guitar school called Modern Metal Academy. Modern Metal Academy, I should say that properly. And we've been working on it for the best part of the year.
Are you not going to be in trouble?
I'm not going to abbreviate it. But I'm glad you picked up on that immediately. That's pretty good.
I was just thinking to myself, MMA, there could be some copyright issues there. But yes,
they could try,
Academy.
but it's like they're the ones that abbreviated it, not me, you know? So yeah, we're going to be launching the guitar part probably in around a week before this comes out. It should be launched. So hopefully. And
what is it? Just lots of downloadable content or one-to-ones or what?
It's going to be a mixture of a bunch of different things. So we're going to have obviously the video lessons online that are going to follow lesson pathways, which I think a lot of the online schools fail to sort of deliver in. There's never any sort of cohesive order.
Right.
Like a curriculum, you know, or like a course if you go to university or something like that. So we're doing it in a way where it's actually digestible and understandable, not just learn 5 licks here and play in augmented, altered scale 4. That's not a scale, I know, but you know, and it's like it's actually a pathway to actually get better at rhythm guitar, which is ultimately the backbone of all music. We're going to be doing actual formative feedback with a human. So a lot of people that play instruments are quite introverted and maybe can get a bit scared about posting their playing on a public platform. So we're going to offer them to actually send it directly to us to actually get true feedback, which again, no other school online offers, because obviously it's a big undertaking of time for people. Well, Kieran can say some more. He's probably got some good marketing ploys for me here. No. So also, we're going to be having it all in one platform. So a lot of the online schools now are divided between either a Facebook group, a Discord group, and then you go onto the website. We've built something that is all as one. So it's the community aspect with messaging, liking, posting videos, as well as all of the lessons in one place.
Any other names and any other tutors involved that maybe people might know or I might know?
You'll find out.
Very quiet. Well, you know, on that, so links will be in the description of this video if you want to go find out about John's
We do
school.
have something very, very big coming though, and that will be launched in around February 1st.
February 2024.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, you might be watching this video after that, so go check that out as well.
Very
look,
cool.
man, it's been great to have you on.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Finally.
There's some, for me anyway, the guitar community is something I feel blessed to be part of.
Yeah.
Everyone I meet is just, you know, from whatever genre of music they play and whatever age they are, there's almost always some common ground that you find and a shared joy or something. Which, again, that whole recent thing with Joe Satriani of just like, you know, where he's on the Howard Stern show and, you know, and then, you know, all these wannabe, you know, other guitar players decide that they're going to post their thing about, oh, Joe, you didn't play it right, you should have played it like this, you know, so I can't believe you didn't play it right. It's just like, that part of the guitar community,
it's like he's playing Van Halen.
He's the real deal.
You're not.
Yeah, it's just like, it is just some of that. I think, I don't know why I'm ending on this. I feel like that the way some people talked about Joe Satriani was so outrageously disrespectful, and I just want, you know, it's like, I think it's like, you're, you know, if you play guitar, just be one of the nice guys.
Yeah.
Like say something positive.
The law of echoes.
You know? Yeah, like what? Don't be a guitar player to be the negative guy in the room.
Exactly. Yeah, the law of echoes. That is basically you attract who you are.
Right.
If you want positivity in your life, just be positive all the time, or try to be. I know it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I just wanted to get. I don't know how relevant this will be by the time this video gets out, but anyway, right. Thank you so much for watching. Please go check out all of John's music, his school, his signature guitar products.
Everything.
You know, just support him, yes. And yes, please play us out with something.
I got the perfect thing for you, mate.
We're going to play Guns. You're going to play. You're going to play Wanted Dead or Alive or something like that.
I'm in Dadgad. I can't do that.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, come on then. Let's hear some riffage.
Oh, you want to hear some riffage?
Some dirty,
all right.
powerful riffage.
All right. There you go.
I'm expecting to see on the new Monuments album. How brilliant would that be?
Oh, dude, I'd love to, and I would get sued by Mr. Clapton immediately.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. You do 24 nights, wouldn't you? But Monument style. It's just
right, yeah, live. Just playing. What else could we add to that?
You'd have to do Crossroads and...
cocaine.
Cocaine?
Oh, no, Sunshine of Your Love. Wait.
Come on, that's got to be... I want the covers album. The progressive metal, Eric Clapton and Cream covers album. I tell you, that could be a genre.
Can you imagine White Room?
That's just all be epic. Can you imagine Wonderful Tonight?
Oh,